weekly series of lectures called Urban Dialogues, which NIUAA is doing in partnership with the India Habitat Center. We expect that about 4 of these lectures during the year are going to be supported by the Asian Development Bank, with whom we are working. So this is an attempt to actually bring together a broader set of stakeholders in the urban sector who can support an exchange of ideas about this sector, which has caught everybody's attention, and rightly so. Our first lecture last month was by Mr. Mahesh Butch, retired from the Indian Administrative Service, and also one of the authors of the now famous report of the Urbanization Commission, which was released in 1988 and did not really get absorbed into policies of the urban sector, but nevertheless is a standard reference now for a set of ideas that need to be embedded into our view of the urban sector. Mr. Mahesh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shiv. I confess to being a sociologist. I do hope I'll get better. That's the way it is right now. It's true that urbanization is a process that we should pay more attention to. And I came to the study of urbanization, or some awareness of it at least, in a rather derivative fashion, because I was really interested in good old-fashioned sociological themes such as caste, joint family, and things like that, farmers' mobilization. And as I was looking into those issues, I felt sort of crippled by the fact that most of our literature on these subjects, discussed issues of caste and, say, joint family in a rural context, and also, I think, ignored the fact that things were changing very rapidly, and those changes weren't documented finely enough for my understanding. Let me put it to you this way. When I first began working on rural India, I went there because I was interested in the farmers' movement. And what struck me a lot at that time was that I didn't see big farmers or big landlords.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if this is a response as much as it is my registering agreement with Dr. Gupta's basic premise that we need to think about the rural-urban nexus. I come to the question of the rural-urban nexus as an urbanist. And in urban studies, of course, there's a long tradition of studying what is called the urban question, but for many of us, studying the urban question has always meant studying also the agrarian question. And this is a very interesting moment in urban studies when in fact there's a great deal of debate about how we think about the urban question in relation to rural transformations and the agrarian question. So just yesterday I was reading an article authored by my colleagues at Harvard and ETH, Neil Brenner and Christian Schmidt, where they are putting forward an argument about something called planetary urbanization, where they're arguing that in fact we live in an age where the urban-rural dichotomy is being profoundly destabilized, and in fact we are seeing the urbanization of the world, a phrase they of course borrow from the philosopher Henri Lefebvre. This is a very interesting concept, and we see of course important scenes of that in Professor Gupta's talk this evening. But one of the challenges with the Brenner and Schmidt argument and the ways in which urban studies imagines the urbanization of the world is they argue that there is no outside. They argue that the very concept of the rural is now unnecessary, that the concept of the urban in fact encompasses everything. Everything is being urbanized. It is the urbanization of everything. And of course the provocation I want to present based on Dr. Gupta's talk is that we need to perhaps continue thinking about the analytical relevance of the rural, even if it is a rural where there are farmers who are not farming. And so the rural-urban nexus to me is not necessarily an erasure of the category of rural or of the category of the urban, but thinking very much about the renewed relevance and the reconfigured relevance of those terms. So with that in mind, I want to present 3 analytical points. And the first of these, I think this was implied in Dr. Gupta's talk, it is very much the interest of my own research, is of course that the urban-rural demarcation is a governmental category. And I mean governmental in both senses of the term, that this is in fact of government, produced by governments. Governments tell us what is urban, what is rural, but this is also a mode of governing in the Foucaultian sense.